Hey Pokemon fans, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna hop into another match. Actually, this was a match I recorded the other day. A fun one, a probably frustrating one for my opponent, but one of those matches where the cards just kind of lined up well in my hand. Pretty well, and I got off to a pretty lucky start, so I was already kind of feeling good about this hand, give or take, right off the bat. There were some things I thought that could happen, so I figured my opponent was already playing a Buzzwole deck. I actually don't think I saw that Buzzwole in that hand when I clicked through that quickly, but I kind of figured for the most part my opponent was going to be playing a Buzzwole deck, so that gave me a lot of things to approach from right here. Oh, but where are my manas? But in case if you're brand new to my channel, I've been opening one Pokemon booster pack every single day. In addition to that, about 2 weeks ago, I consistently started bringing back daily gameplay matches as well. It's a way for me to talk about things going on in the current meta, share ideas I have with decks and other things going on, and just kind of talk about my every day-to-day life. So right away, like I said, my opponent, Buzzwole deck, nothing new there. At this point, I just kind of started trying to figure out how I'm going to attack hard with my Psychic guys. And at this point, that's kind of what I thought I was going to do until my opponent played that Brooklet Hill, because there's actually 2 Pokemon in my deck that enables me to open it up. So when your opponent plays a stadium card like that, it opens up a lot of possibilities. Before you even start your match, even if there's nothing in your card in your deck that actually is one of those cards, it's still a legal move to go ahead and take a look through your deck, so absolutely do that. I was kind of already eyeing and trying to decide what I was going to do. What I was deciding, am I going to get Sudowoodo, or am I going to get the big bad boy Seismitoad? I feel so bad every time, but one Seismitoad is pretty common in a standard Zoroark Exeggutor kind of deck. It's a great way if you can manage to start off with a double DCE and a double DCE and a Seismitoad off. It can really strengthen your ability to just kind of manage your bench and resources. So I figured right away that this Seismitoad was probably going to be the way to go, especially since I had that double colors energy. At this point, I was deciding what else I was going to need, but I also set up pretty well, and I had that Floatstone in my hand. So at this point, I was thinking I can still get, I can go ahead and grab a Zorua, and I can grab a Sudowoodo. So right off the bat, I'm limiting my opponent, how many Pokemon my opponent can play out on their bench, and then I'm also end up attacking with Seismitoad. So, for me, it's a fair way to play like this, and there's plenty of people who play matches like this. Actually, one of my friends, I need to share one of the matches from last week and condense some of that footage a little bit, is actually running a pure Seismitoad deck, kind of something he's kind of working on post-rotation, which is absolutely frustrating to play against, but it's a fantastic deck, and it's a valid strategy. So at this point, I can take a pretty solid bet at least one of the cards in my opponent's hand is gonna be a Psychic type card. So let's see, at this point I'm thinking that my opponent is probably gonna try to evolve that Remoraid, because something my opponent is gonna really be hoping for is to draw that Octillery. So at this point, this is when I legitimately feel bad about doing this, really. So at this point, I see what can happen here is that I can attack that Remoraid and claim my first prize card by switching out with Guzma. And like I said, this was just because the stars just kind of lined up in position to work in my favor. And I think I end up playing that Ultra Ball. I decided to go for that right away. Like I said, this match was recorded 2 days ago. I probably would have actually discarded both the Steven and the Guzma instead, but I go ahead and I grab back out. Why do I grab out that Bridget? I don't know why I do that. No, I decided to trade a little bit. That's what I was going for. None of that. It's really funny going back and watching some of your plays, because they really don't make a lot of sense. There were some things that could have been better to recycled out. I guess I was trying to rely on my VS Seekers, but there was a couple things there that could have been better. But at this point, and I don't set out another pup. I should have absolutely set it out. Oh no, I can't, because of the Sudowoodo on my opponent's bench. I put out that Skyfield just to discard his Brooklet Hill. At this point, this is when any kind of energy attached to that Buzzwole, strong energy, my opponent is able to get that. He can start doing some solid hits to Seismitoad. So at this point, I figure Seismitoad might not be out here much longer, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out just kind of how to solve things out. And because Seismitoad, while he might not be able to knock him out, he can chip off just enough HP to where I can bring in another guy like Zork or something out that can knock him out. So that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to think about here right now, and I just want to slow my opponent's deck down, because I'm already thinking about how I'm gonna get past that that 3 to 4 prize card knockout, because you can assume in a Buzzwole deck in the current meta that a person will indeed have a Beast Ring or 2, or maybe even 3 Beast Rings in their deck. But this is when I start feeling pretty good about things, getting this Magcargo into my hand. At this point now, I can kind of search for anything in my deck, and I figure it's going to take at least another, if he were to knock out this Seismitoad, he'd have to get another Strong Energy, or I really don't think there was many ways that he probably could knock out the Seismitoad at this point in the match. At this point, I'm just kind of trying to figure out how, I hate to say this word, but kind of figuring out how to just be the biggest troll right now. Like I said, even looking at this, I really am taking my time though, just to try to make sure that I cover all my bases for anything that I might need for the following turn. So that VS Seeker I put there at the top, not for the fact that, because I can't draw right now, but getting a VS Seeker then gives me a lot of options for my discard pile already. So we're going to go ahead and see what my opponent does next. So at this point, I already know Guzma could be in their deck. My Zork is a sitting duck there for the most part. But just right there too, my opponent turned over the turn pretty quickly, so they probably didn't have anything with abilities or anything like that, and they started going for Zork instead. So what do? I end up going for that other Double Colors Energy. I can't remember. I think I do something kind of cool here. Yeah, I think I know what I end up doing here. So I figure it'll be a couple turns before I can pull off an attack, so I do remember what I end up doing here. So I assume that I kind of wanted to kick things into high gear here a little bit, and I figured there really probably wasn't a way I could keep Quaking Punch going for too long. So instead of trying to keep going for this this kind of solve a match, I kind of assumed ahead of time that let's go ahead and lose Zork. And what I mean by that is I end up going for Guzma here. And I actually end up switching out because I'm a little tired of that Sudowoodo actually being out there on the bench. So I'm kind of trying to figure out, do I want to go ahead and try to go for that Sudowoodo? So I figure I have enough power on my bench right now, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, exactly to get a knockout even with just those 4 guys. So I figured let's go ahead and bring out, interesting enough, I try to do it like that because I do have a float zone, so I'm still trying to just take my time. I use Smooth Over, and I assume that Zork's going to get out because you also see in my hand I have Teammates there and ready, and I have Mew in my hand. But even if my opponent plays does something else like play an N or something, I still have that Magcargo, so it really doesn't change much. At this point, I assume and I get ready that Zork is going to get knocked out. But then that there will be kind of more options still to come, even if that does end up happening. And there's the chance that they might not have, because most people, if they run a Sudowoodo, it's one of those things you really don't run more than 1, maybe 2, maybe you try to get it back out on your bench. But by me removing that Sudowoodo as well, it gives me more space on my bench, and then they have to use other resources if they really want to try to get that Sudowoodo back on the bench. Not a lot of people spend time getting Sudowoodo. Sudowoodo is kind of just something that takes up space there on the bench. So I figured let's go ahead and knock this out and see if this kind of theory holds out. If knocking out Zork, letting my Zork get knocked out, because I already know he's going to get knocked out, ends up paying off. I was actually surprised to see him send out Rockruff, because even in this current state, I think it's almost a knockout, even 30, 60, another 20. Yeah, he's already doing a lot of damage with even with that Buzzwole. He doesn't need a lot more stopping power. And at this point too, Beast Ring can be a thing. Yep, he attaches that Beast Energy. I think that's what gives him enough to get the knockout on Zorg. And like I said, I kind of really wanted this knockout to happen. So I decided to kind of take a little bit of a risk and a little bit of a chance here. So I let that happen, and then I kind of remembered too that Mew can't really do much here. So I was trying to remember to make sure that Mewtwo was in my deck. So at this point, I do believe I end up playing Teammates, but then I top deck that Mew. At this point, I just need a double colors energy, and I do believe I set out another pup out on the bench, and I go for a double colors energy. And there's always moments like this, I always have a hard time deciding what the second card that I want to have, but I actually am pretty happy with this one. I think I end up going for a special charge just to recycle back the special energy that is currently in my discard pile. And then the Mewtwo at this point, he has more than enough power to be able to knock out that Buzzwole. I get one double colors energy back in there, which I think ends up actually helping out later in the match. And then I set out the Zorua, and we bring out Mewtwo. And I figure at this point, now I'm in the range where if he sets out another GX Pokemon, I'm feeling pretty good about getting close to a win. Getting that last double colors energy from my face down prize cards also puts all of my prize cards back into my hand, or at least I know where they currently are. And then I figured we would see Lycanroc GX. I did not expect, again, it was one of those matches where I really do take advantage of the fact of your Pokemon getting knocked out. It's actually okay as long as you're careful with that resource. And then I was just curious if they were gonna evolve their Pokemons, because once he evolved him into Lycanroc, that was gonna be, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna knock out that Lycanroc next turn. I'm not gonna give him another chance to try to turn that match around. And I kind of figured Mewtwo would be the guy that gets knocked out here at this point. Like I said, honestly, this match, I think they'll say that the MVP was probably Zorg, but really the MVP was Seismitoad. I mean, he stalled for such a long time, enabling me to be able to get out the cargo, to be able to get out Zorg, and just really start stacking things up. Dangerous Rogue GX, 50 more damage for each bench Pokemon on your opponent's bench, so easily a knockout. I think I do end up sending out Macargo. And two things I'm looking for at this point, I need a Skyfield, which I end up top decking, which is actually absolutely crazy, but I could have top decked that Skyfield. I have everything in my hand at this point to be able to pull this off. Evolve Zork, attach the double colors energy, and then actually there are a couple things I need to still to a choice band so I can get it to over 200, because even with a stack bench, the one thing that Zork has working against him is that his max does 110 and then 180, and then you can do an additional 30, give or take, with a choice band for you. So on average, at the highest, I would say the most common max damage we see is 210. There are a few ways to tap that out even more if you have like a Kukui or something. I don't have one of those in my deck, so I've never actually done it myself, so it's possible to get to like 230, but I've done pretty good at just staying at this level right now. Currently, this deck is a 2018-2019 every deck that is legal for the expanded format, and this will probably be something I experiment with a lot out in the next 6 months. I'm actually really happy with how this deck is holding up. The few changes I've made to it, I added in Macargo and I added in Steven, have won me so many matches. I can't even begin to express how cool that is. So at this point, I'm beginning to wrap things up right here. I get out a couple more Exeggucutes just for good measure, just to make sure I've done everything correctly. I throw those two guys in here, and at this point, I just need a stacked bench of Exeggucutes. But yeah, this is my channel. I've been really happy with where these videos are at right now. Eventually, I think I want to start doing daily live streams. I think in the morning would be good, either doing these live streams or the booster pack, and then just kind of hopping on whenever I'm doing this, because I have so many other thoughts to always share about the meta. Like I said, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180 is the total, plus 30 with the choice band for a whopping 210. Like I said, I love the flexibility of this deck, and I'm really happy to hopefully bring it to a regional tournament in a couple months, but you never know how the meta can change. Fellow trainers, I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you tomorrow as always.